Welcome to another edition of the CS Podcast, where you can hear interviews with special guests such as
Dale Buchanan, Tom Waddle, Pierre Desir, Brent Barry, Ed Werder,
and many others.
Too big, too strong, too fast, too good.
So be sure to subscribe and tune in to the CS Podcast on YouTube at youtube.com/ChristianRE722.
Did you not get the memo?
That's www.youtube.com/ChristianRE722 for great interviews. Be sure to check out the CS Podcast.
You are ridiculous.
Welcome back to the CS Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Shanafel, and I'm now joined by former NFL wide receiver. He was drafted 18th overall out of Louisiana State University by the St. Louis Rams and went on to have a 13-year playing career, also playing for the New Orleans Saints, Chicago Bears, Denver Broncos, and the Kansas City Chiefs. He's the one and only Eddie Kennison. Thanks so much for joining the show today, Eddie. How's it going?
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on, man. Life is awesome. Everything is great. You forgot to mention the other 28 teams that I could have possibly paid for.
Yeah, you're right about that. Well, I got to say, it's definitely a pleasure to get you on, Eddie. And let's go ahead and get right to it. We'll be talking about your playing days, and I definitely want to get your thoughts on a couple of things that are going on in the NFL nowadays. Like I said in the opening, though, you were drafted 18th overall by the St. Louis Rams out of LSU. Can you just tell us a little bit about your draft day and what it was like to hear your name called up to the podium?
Well, Chris, leading up, to the time that they actually called my name, I was with my family and friends in Louisiana. And, it was kind of one of those eerie nerve kind of days because you were hoping to get, picked in the first round. We had done all of our research on, the potential of getting picked in the first round, but we all know that that's not always certain. So it was a little nerve-wracking, leading up to that point, but it was great, it was with the family, having a good time that particular day, but, everything was still kind of edgy, kind of nerve-wracking leading up to that point, so, but I still remember it vividly, my agent, my grandparents were there, my parents, cousins, a lot of people were there, to, celebrate that day and bring it in, and it was fantastic, now you've made me think about it, man. I go back to that day and I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
Was it a surprise that St. Louis selected you?
It wasn't a surprise, just because, we don't know, I didn't know at that time where I was going to go. At that time, Chris, a kid out of college, the dream is to get drafted into the National Football League. And I was just happy that my name was called, when it was called. I mean, it worked perfect and it turned out great.
Absolutely. Well, we do have the NFL draft actually here in Chicago in just a few months. It's the time of the year where I actually interview NFL draft prospects. I've been talking to all types of different guys from big-time D1 schools to smaller D2 schools. Is there any advice that you would give these guys that are looking to achieve their dreams and play in the NFL?
There's a lot of advice, Chris, that I can give them, brother. We can probably talk on that for another 2 hours. Getting ready for the draft. I would say the one main thing is really putting your family, sitting them down and helping them understand that the money that you are about to make, it's not your money, it's my money, and I'm going to decide what to do with it and how I'm going to do it. No one in your family should dictate how your money is going to be spent and how much of your money is going to be spent. Definitely have total control over the money that you are about to get, and understand how much money you have and where it's going. That would be the first thing that I would do. And and there are a lot of things, in between that I can give advice on. Obviously, everybody, they have the dream to make it, and once they make money, go out, buy your mother and your father, buy them a nice house, but buy them something that's they are able to pay the taxes on themselves during that course of time and have you a little fun, buy you a nice car, buy you some nice clothes, those type of things, but put more of your money away than you spend. And on the end of their career, because you have to talk about the end because it will ultimately come to an end, when you're done playing football, fire everybody that's on your staff, except your CPA, because you want that guy to hang around because he's probably the guy that's going to help you save a lot of money. But like your agent, your cousin, everybody that you've hired, get rid of those guys at the end of your playing career.
Former NFL wide receiver Eddie Kennison joining the CS podcast. And Eddie, after being selected by the St. Louis Rams, you went on to play 3 years in St. Louis, and then you were traded to your hometown team, the New Orleans Saints. What was your reaction to being traded?
That was a pretty cool lesson because it was a morning phone call and that I had received from the St. Louis Rams said that I had been traded to New Orleans, and it was fantastic because now I'm going home to play in my home state in front of the home crowd, and it was fantastic. The only thing that I was scared of is the amount of tickets I had to pay for every week while playing in New Orleans.
That's great. Now, Eddie, this show is actually broadcasted out of Chicago, and your head coach during that 1 year of yours in New Orleans was Mike Ditka, who, of course, was the Hall of Fame tight end and head coach of the great 1985 Chicago Bears. How would you describe Ditka as a coach?
I tell you what, Chris, I would go into any foxhole with Mike Ditka. Mike is one of those the coaches who understands players because he was a player, and he coached like a head coach should. Hey, these are the rules, and it wasn't many of them. It was just a few. You guys follow these rules. Let's go have fun and let's play football. And Mike, he's a family guy. He cared about the family, made sure that the families were able to come in and out of the state in the locker room. All of those fun things. Even at training camp, he was very light at training camp. And if Mike Ditka went back into coaching today and he called me to go play or coach for his team, I would absolutely do that in a heartbeat.
I would absolutely love to see that. So after a year in New Orleans, you were traded to the Chicago Bears, and after a season in Chicago, you spent half of a season in Denver, and then you made your way to Kansas City, where you would play about 6.5, close to 7 seasons at. You actually went on to have some of the best years of your career with the Kansas City Chiefs. Why do you think that was? Do you think that it was just the team that you were on? Do you feel you got better with age? How were you able to have the success that you had towards the later years of your playing career?
Chris, it was definitely experience and age. Really understanding the game for what it is. Yeah, it's a fun sport. We have fun playing it. They pay us to play the game, but there's a business side of that sport as well in the National Football League. And I think I got to the point when I made it to Kansas City that I understood both sides of the game. The fun aspect of it, that's playing on Sunday, and the business side. And I really took both of those very seriously, and I took them to heart. And I wore them on my sleeve every day when I woke up to go to practice or Sundays for games. And I think that helped me last, my last 6.5, 7 seasons here in Kansas City.
After your time in KC, you had a second stint in St. Louis in 2008, and it was on July 19th, 2010, when you signed a one-day contract with the Kansas City Chiefs and officially retired as a member of the team. I know that you had already been out of the game for a little while before making that decision to retire, but was it tough to make that decision, and what was that moment like for you to officially retire from the NFL?
Chris, it was not difficult for me because at the time, and still to this day, I'm an at-peace guy. I'm at peace with God, man, and I'm at peace with how my career played out and how my life is. I left the game My marriage was intact, and it's stronger than ever now. My ties and the community here in Kansas City is fantastic. My boys are wonderful boys. I have 3 great kids, and there was nothing better at that time because of how my life was had unfolded. I was at peace. Me and God were awesome buddies, man, and I was okay with retirement. It was time. I was 35 years old, and if you know, just like anyone else, that once you pass the 33-year-old stage in the National Football League, you're starting to get up there pretty much in age, man, and it was the right time for me to leave the game.
Hey, man, the average NFL career only lasts about, 3.5, 4 years. You're able to play 13 long seasons in the National Football League, so you can't ask more for that. And obviously you had a lot of success. Now, if I were to ask you what the most memorable play of your playing career would be, do you think you'd be able to, mention one?
I think the one that really stands out the most in the National Football League, 2003 here in Kansas City. We were 8-0 going into Green Bay, and that was a time Brett Favre was still quarterbacking for the Packers, and Green Bay was a force to reckon with at that time. And in the fourth quarter, going into the fourth quarter, we were down 17 points, and Jerome Woods picked off a Brett Favre pass and ran it back for a touchdown, and that started this string of us coming back, to potentially win that game. When the clock ended, the game was tied. We go into overtime. Green Bay wins the toss. The very first play, Brett hands the ball off to Amon Green. He fumbles, and Mike Maslowski recovers the fumble. The very next play, Al Saunders dials up a play that was, geared for me. I ran the play, and we scored a 56-yard touchdown first play overtime to win that game, and that was probably the most memorable play in my football career.
I kid you not, I was actually just watching that play a couple hours ago prepping for this interview, and that 56-yard touchdown was actually a pass thrown to you.
Correct. Yeah, it was a Trent Green pass to Eddie Kennison, and that was the play that was dialed up. Al Saunders dialed that play up, and he trusted, us to get that play done, and thank God that play got done.
Chris Shanafelt talking with former NFL wide receiver Eddie Kennison here on the CS Podcast. And Eddie, I just want to get your thoughts on a couple of things going on in the NFL, and then I'll let you go. I really do appreciate your time, sir. And we'll go ahead and get started with the Chicago Bears. This was definitely probably the most upsetting season I've ever seen them have. There's so much talent on this team, and it seemed like everyone had high expectations for them this season. Well, they finished 5-11, last in the NFC North, and their defense was probably the worst it's ever been in the history of the Chicago Bears. Last week, they made a decision to fire both general manager Phil Emery and head coach Mark Trestman. I'll go ahead and ask you, what were your thoughts on the season the 2014 Chicago Bears had? And is there anybody specific that you'd like to see as a Bears' next head coach?
When you have a season such as a 5-11 season, the GM and the head coach didn't get fired just because of this season. It was the couple seasons before that led up to this season. And, the National Football League and organizations, they look at what have you done to make this organization better than what we brought you in. And if you hadn't produced as a player, as a coach, as a GM, the owners are looking at what have you done. And if you haven't produced what we thought you were going to produce or what you said you were going to produce, then we're going to have to go try and find someone else that can get the job done, because the National Football League is about winning. It's about getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. And that's what it's all about. So it wasn't just this season. It was 1 or 2 seasons leading up to this. This was just kind of the icing on the cake. So far as the next coach for the Chicago Bears, I mean, there's so many, guys that are out there I'm sure that are available. And, I don't know every coach that's out there. I'm sure there's some college coaches that are well equipped and qualified, for a job. I'm sure there's guys in the National Football League, some offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators that are out there that are qualified for the job. And I'm sure that the Chicago Bears organization will go out and find the right head coach for their organization.
And, of course, Emery was only the general manager for the Bears for 3 seasons. Trestman was only the coach for 2 seasons, so you're definitely right. It's a what have you done for me lately type of league. Not NFL stands for not for long, of course, except for when you talk about wide receiver Eddie Kennison's career. Is that right?
Hey, man, I was very blessed, brother, to be able to make it 13 seasons. Like you said, the average is 3.4 years, man, and I was just blessed to be able to make it 13.
Absolutely. And as a former St. Louis Ram, Eddie, I'm curious to hear your take on this. Yesterday, news came out that the owner of the St. Louis Rams, Stan Kroenke, is planning on building an NFL stadium in Los Angeles. And some sources have actually said that Kroenke has gone as far as saying that he'll be moving the Rams to L.A., whether he has the NFL's permission or not. They're saying that this could take place as soon as 2016. Would you like to see the Rams move back to L.A., or would you rather have them stay put in St. Louis?
That's a good question. I'm okay either way. I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. So, as long as the Chiefs stay in Kansas City, brother, I'm totally fine. I think the city of L.A. needs a team, but the city of L.A. has to be willing to support an NFL team. I think they've had 2, the Raiders and the Rams, and both of those teams moved out because of the lack of support. So L.A. has to be willing to support a team, and I think if the city will embrace it and support it, I think any team could move there and have play a football team. I think it would work great for them. So if St. Louis does move there, I think that'd be a good move for them.
Especially with how bad the LA Lakers are now. I know the Clippers are good, but the Lakers are just horrible. So it seems like right now would be the perfect time to move the Rams if they're ever going to move. But last but not least, Mr. Kennison, you mind telling us a little bit what you're doing nowadays? How's life after football treating you? I see you actually started up Barrel 87. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you. My foundation is still going. Quick Start, the Eddie Kennison Foundation. We're still raising money and putting out education about lupus research, and raising money for lupus research. Barrel 87 is one of our new businesses. It is we focus on wine, beer, and spirits, where we have club subscriptions where our club members get an opportunity to have a product delivered to their home of business every month. And as an added perk as a club member, I also travel around and I do cooking shows where I've hired a video production crew, and I go into my ex-teammates' homes and celebrity chefs and people I know, and we cook their family favorite recipe, and I pair different wines, beer, and spirit with their recipe. And so it's a cool deal. It's fun. I get to travel. I get to eat and different recipes and try different wines and things like that. So that's what Barrel 87 is all about. And if they would like, your fans and listeners, they can go to barrel87.com and they can like us on Facebook and see everything that we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, once again, Eddie, it really was a true pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for your time. I sure hope we could keep in touch and do this again down the line. Happy New Year to you and your family, all right?
Hey, thanks a lot, Chris. Anytime, man, and Happy New Year to you as well.